Doris Singy Riley right there with Human Nature, of course, the Michael Jackson hit, taking us right down to 1:15, and it's time for us to join Debbie Ray Rivers and the good Dr. Hancock in studio here with us right now. Let me get the right microphones turned on here, folks. There we go, Dr. Hancock, that's
Hi.
you. And Debbie, all the way over there in the Carolinas, welcome. Let's get started on our monthly SCARS Survivor Hour.
Thank you, Shelley. Hi, Dr. Hancock.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our SCARS Survivor Hour radio show. I'm the executive director of SCARS, Saving Children, Revealing Secrets, and hopefully most of you know we are a charity whose mission is to reduce the risk of child sexual abuse in our Bermuda community. I'm also a survivor of child sexual abuse, and I'm a mom of 2 survivors. Dr. Hancock on set at the studio. She is a most valued SCARS board member and a clinical psychologist, a registered clinical psychologist with decades of experience in child sexual abuse. This Survivor Hour, we want to thank the Conduit Foundation for sponsoring it, because it's really difficult for charities to do these type of initiatives without our amazing donors, and we are very grateful to the Conduit Foundation for their continued investment in our important work in child sexual abuse prevention and awareness, and we're grateful to them. Now, today, everyone, if you didn't see our social media post, today Dr. Hancock and I are going to talk about a child that was not molested, but it's been brought to light that one of their parents or guardians molested a child. And we know that not every child molester or a molester of children will molest their own flesh and blood. We know that. But that little child of the molester is still affected. And they carry a burden that was never meant for them to carry. And we want to help them and their other family members, their caregivers, and those that work with these children of molesters. How do we support them? And Dr. Hancock is going to help us with this, because this is really important. These, they didn't ask for this, right? And so we're gonna go through the next hour and just talk about supporting them and some of the things that the adults and the people in their life can help with this. Now, before we get into the conversation, I do need to remind everyone about our broadcasting rules. This show does contain sensitive information, and it is intended for adults only. And any adult who's listening this afternoon, please remember, whether you're a survivor or you're a family member of a child molester, or you've been through this yourself, please know that you have the power to change this radio station, and you can do that at any time. Taking care of yourself is so important, and please do that. Your well-being comes first, always, and taking care of you is what matters most. The number here at Power 95 is 292-9595, and you are welcome to call in. This is a sensitive topic, everyone, so when calling into the show, we are going to ask our callers, do not mention your name or a perpetrator's name. Please be mindful that this show is not meant for personal attack. It's meant to educate, empower, make aware, advocate for children and for our survivors of child sexual abuse. If you do have a childhood story of sexual abuse, we don't have any way of confirming your testimony, and so we can't vet that over this show, but you absolutely can share your story. And we have a platform called Survivor Hour TV, and if you ever want to call me and reach out to me and ready to speak, let's have a meeting first and we'll discuss that. We would love that. We have yet to reduce the stigma around child sexual abuse. That's the one thing we haven't done in 14 and a half years. And so never be afraid to say you're a survivor. We just ask for no detail during this call, but never be ashamed of saying you're a survivor, because this is not our shame as survivors. Also, please remember, we're not legal experts. We can answer questions about surviving sexual abuse and how trauma affects victims of child sexual abuse, but we are not the legal experts in our country. Please, absolutely no attack on any lawyer, judge, or magistrate. And so we're grateful that you respect our broadcasting rules. And Dr. Hancock, let's get right into this, because this is an important conversation, right?
Yep.
We know that, I want to begin by saying a child who's been sexually molested is left with emotional scars that will often be there for a lifetime. We know that. Trust me, I know it. I've lived it and I've seen it. I've witnessed it. And so those scars are there, but we know that healing is also possible, but it does take time and it takes support from the people in our life. But we are all affected when a child is sexually violated, and we know that the impact of this is so far-reaching. And today, we want to talk about how the impact will also affect a child of a child molester.
Yeah.
They, too, are left with a host of emotions, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It can be so confusing. There's a ton of, betrayal, guilt, shame, pain, and, a ton of confusion and cognitive dissonance. It's, which we can go into in a little bit.
Go ahead. It definitely will affect them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, a child doesn't necessarily have to be sexually molested to have it hit home, particularly if it is somebody that has done it in their home.
I just want everyone listening to imagine this. Think about this, everyone. Imagine discovering that your father or your mother has sexually violated one of your friends, your cousins, maybe even someone you don't know. Imagine what that must do to a child, right? Whether young or old.
Yeah, that news itself just completely dismantles any level of whatever idea of the relationship you had with that person is completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Completely destroyed.
Yeah, and we have to remember that, not every child molester will molest their own child. Some do and some don't.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that don't sexually molest their own child, their criminal behavior and their unlawful actions will most definitely affect the children in their life, and their other children in their life, right? Their own children or children that they did not steal innocence from. Those children are going to be affected. Absolutely.
The Star-Trek families across the world are forced to face a painful reality that a loved one has been accused or found responsible for sexual abuse. And so inevitably that impact on adults in the family is going to have even more of a significant impact on the child. Unless we can equip families with the right resources and tools on how to help the child of the child molester.
Yeah. A child of a child molester has no power over how their parents act or the choices they make. They have no power over that. And we know that in Bermuda, we live in a very small community where we know a lot of people, and word can get around very fast. And thinking about the fact that children don't choose their parents, but when a child discovers that one of their parents has sexually violated a child, it can be devastating.
Well, at every level,
child,
yeah.
right?
At every level, from the point of feeling shameful that has happened and having to face other people, and the public's perception of the family after that, but also then it becomes their own sense of safety and security has been completely destroyed. They've been betrayed as well, right? There's been some broken trust. There's this unfounded guilt.
Right?
Kind of feeling tainted.
And some even self-blame. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Like you're feeling tainted or embarrassed because of their family, or worrying obviously about that others will judge them or treat them differently, or, might even suspect that, that the child, as they grow up, could potentially become a molester. And so they might alienate themselves from other people. The community, might feel an increase in need to protect their own family, which might then isolate the child of the abuser. So again, it just changes their whole entire life, and we probably don't talk enough about kind of the family members, and particularly the children who are affected by knowing that their parent has sexually violated a child. Whether it's in the past or has just happened.
Yes, and we've had many shows on this about helping, survivors and victims of child sexual abuse. Those who have been victim to a crime, we've had a lot of shows on helping them, and we must continue doing that. But this show, we wanted to really step in and support the child of the molester and the supporting family, right? And how do we help a child, Dr. Hancock? How do we help this child navigate through this trauma, and how do we help the adults in that child's life support this child who did not choose this?
Well, and first we have to kind of talk about what they might experience, So even without the direct abuse, they can struggle with confusion, cognitive dissonance, which is basically a state of mental discomfort that, occurs when an individual holds a particular belief about a person, such as, loving a family member, but it doesn't correlate with the behavior of molesting a child. And so there's such confusion in what to think. How can I love someone who did something so harmful? Or how can someone I love do something so harmful? So they might try to reconcile positive memories, with a child who has a parent that has done something wrong. For instance, many times you find that through hearing family members talk about them, or even just their own cognitive dissonance, they end up kind of feeling more protective of that parent because they might feel that parent is alone. So they might become initially a bit more protective, which is not, that's not uncommon. And this is where we have to be very careful, particularly with children, that we don't just jump down their throats and, tell them that they can't feel the way that they feel. Because remember, their whole world has just been shattered. Their whole, when a parent is supposed to protect and help a child feel safe, and that child has felt safe and protected through that one parent, it's, you can't just, it's not a light switch. You can't just turn that off. And so if you don't want that child to shut down, or you want that child to continue talking to you, or not have the effects and impact of finding out this information to seep into their core of self-worth and confidence, etc., and identity, then we have to be careful in how we talk to them and how we support them.
Yes, and we have to, remember, children are not mini adults.
No.
So when you have an adult in a child's life whose life has just been shattered, let's be honest, their life has been shattered as well. We know the pain it brings on survivors, but let's think about the children of the offender. They need emotional support from the loved ones in their little young life, and even the loved ones, the adults, they're carrying their own pain, right?
Yeah.
And so this is we've got a lot to manage here. And what as I was writing in my notes, it's like we can't carry, as adults, it's incumbent of the adult not to bring on that pain of their own pain onto a little one. Isn't that right? Because
yes,
that little child's not going to understand that. You find somebody in your life that is unconditionally love you. This is either whether it's the spouse or the partner of the molester, or the other family members, the parents of the molester. They need people in their life to support them.
Well, and
it should be separate from the child.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Healing.
And that's why we have to equip the adults with the tools, but also talk to them about their own feelings and maybe confusion, because their beliefs and thoughts about what has happened is going to directly impact how they talk to the child. And, this is the difference between feelings and action. And so you can't force somebody to feel a certain way. But with a child, you want to help them feel and express how they feel about the parent and the situation without judging it and without trying to force your own thoughts and beliefs about how they should feel. But what you can do is make sure that they're safe. So you can put boundaries in place that need to be set. But do not, but don't try and change or tell the child that they can't still love this parent, that they can't still want to see this parent, or just feel even if they feel like they're in disbelief, you can't force that, because the more you force it, the more you're going to cause that child to dig their heels in and protect the parent that, shouldn't be protected, so to speak. So, but a lot of
you do want to make sure. You do want to make sure that child is protected, because,
yes,
incest is not something that, I think it definitely exists, but it's not easy to talk about. So even if, you just want to make sure your child is safe and is safe to tell you if they're safe. That's so important, right?
Right. Which is why you have to welcome their thoughts and perceptions of the situation for themselves. Like I said, you can focus on the practical nature and the action. So focus on protecting them, focus on making sure that there's boundaries in place so that they, that they're not at risk of being molested by their parent. That's the most that you can really do.
And can I say, for a molester who confirms his actions or her actions, and don't minimize, deny, or ignore what they've done, they too need tools in how to understand that how everybody is feeling is substantiated.
Oh, definitely.
They broke the trust, and so they have to understand that their child may not want to be around them right away, and they as the one that caused all this pain should be put in a position to say, you have to understand that. Give this child and give your child some time to process this. Because they may not want to be around that parent that abused. And they should have the right and the choice to process it first before they decide, you know what, I am ready, or I do want to see them. Right?
Yeah.
That's another part of this.
So the accuser or the person, the child molester, that person really does need to come, if they want any chance of repairing any kind of relationship with their family and their own children. There definitely has to be some level of understanding and giving that person whatever time they need, because forcing it or jumping into denial or getting defensive just is actually going to make it worse and cause more alienation and fear, right? Because again, it's, if you're trying to force me to just let it go of something that feels very, very intense for me, good luck at trying to force me to let that go just because you're ready or you're in need of my my love and support. You won't get it, So they've got to have some choices because guess what? Their choice was taken from them when their parent did this to another child. Yeah.
Now they need to have some choices in whether they have to have some power to say, I don't want this relationship, or I do. And if they do, the other caregiver has to make sure that child's safe. So there might have to be some boundaries in place, right? Observable, interruptible, things like that, because you definitely want to rule it out. But that child does need to have some choices in that matter. Is that right? When it comes to not wanting to be around that person.
Absolutely. Because, again, they may feel unsafe. And if there was any level of unsafety or fear before, there were other things going on in that child's life, you've just dismantled their whole concept of what does make them feel safe. So a lot of, going back to the feelings that a lot of children of child molesters can experience, there's fear and anxiety, am I safe? Could it happen to me? And even create a fear of being alone around adults, any adults, right? Because, you grow up believing that at least you would hope that a parent or hopefully both parents are people out of everybody in the world would be the number one person to protect you at whatever cost. And so having that happen when it's one of your parents that is the child molester, there's very likely a fear of being alone or being around adults in general. They may appear shut down. They can actually experience and exhibit symptoms similar to children that have been molested. Right. There's guilt and shame, like I said earlier. worrying about going outside, worrying about going to school, like what if everybody knows?
Yeah.
Loyalty conflicts, so feeling the pressure to feel like they have to pick a side, especially if there's a lot of banter and back and forth and experience of hearing family members talk about their parent, and the confliction of wanting to love the parent, but also feeling anger towards them and feeling of betrayal. One of the things that's often not talked about is loss and grief. So, you have this vision of this parent who, again, has not directly harmed you, but, you have this sense of safety and security and with this parent. And, now you have to almost say goodbye and dismantle your belief about this person. So you don't have trust in this person. You've lost the relationship as you thought it was. It no longer will be the same. So it's kind of like you have to grieve a distant memory of that parent that you once thought was the ideal version of the parent that you thought they were.
And I would imagine that psychological intervention and that's critical.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
critical because, and right, and also depending on their age when this happens, because that would be how we would react appropriately, and that would have to be based on where they are psychologically. Correct?
Yeah. And I think, it's, you have to understand too, that they, parents can't take on all of this on their own. They're going to have their own feelings and thoughts about the perpetrator, and so to believe that, oh well, I can put those feelings aside and just be there for my child 100%. I don't need anybody else around to help my child. That's just it's too much. You don't need to take on all of that and actually believe that you're going to be able to cope with everything, all the questions that are asked, all the feelings that they exhibit, the ability to know that, sometimes when a child is acting out or they're exhibiting pretty intense emotions, that it may not be the situation that's right in front of them, but it could be a buildup of feelings and thoughts about what has happened. So, it's important that parents are able to detect that, which is why, again, that's where therapy can help. Help the parents create the tools, the communication tools, and the practical tools to help children keep talking to them so that we can minimize the impact, long-term impact on their future and how they navigate relationships with other people.
Yes. And this is where the adults in the child's life can help that, whether that's, psychological intervention or somebody who's outside of the family that can help. But support is key. Yeah. The last thing we want is children, because we want children to know that they can talk about a little or as much as they want, right? Give them that ability to do that. Give them that choice.
And something we always talk about it often, but but it's so key for what it doesn't just land with any kind of abuse or trauma, but also, you want to encourage your children to find other trusted adults to confide in. That it doesn't have to be you. As a parent, it doesn't have to be you. And when it hits hard, it hits so hard at home, it's even more imperative that the child has outside people, whether it's a coach or a teacher, or maybe a distant family member or really, really close friends of yours. Welcome that. Welcome the idea that other people can help.
Yeah, because let me tell you, children sometimes they protect their parents.
They sure do,
and so they might tell a parent what they want to hear, just so that they avoid hurting the parent or getting the parent angry or feeling like they have to please the parent. A lot of children, that's what they want to do. They want to please their parents because they love them. So they're going to tell them what the parent wants to hear, even that's not what they're feeling. And we don't want them to do that. We want to teach them that they can be honest with their feeling, even if that hurts us.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where
okay.
it comes down where parents
We're the
have to
grown-ups.
be comfortable with their own emotions and their child's emotions and, not feel that high level of discomfort of actually just, probing children a little bit with, if they say I'm fine, or if, a red flag would be if a child is very vague or brief in their response. When when something's bothering them, or something probably is likely affecting them, don't be afraid to say, hey, I know it may not be always easy to talk to me, but I hope that you can talk to somebody. I hope you can talk to somebody, and it doesn't have to be me. I'd like it to be me, but it's okay because it might be too hard to talk to me. So you invite it. And eventually what you find is that children will eventually come to you because, you've basically kind of set your ego aside and recognize that, children can't always talk to their parents about everything. And it doesn't mean that you're a terrible parent when your child can't talk to you about everything. And that's when I talk about the ego, right? It's putting the ego aside. It's perfectly normal for kids not to tell their parents everything and to talk to other people.
Yes, and we cannot take offense to that. It doesn't mean they don't love us. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it could be just because they're protecting us.
Correct.
Let me just talk to you. There's something that I've witnessed over the years doing this work. I think, what do you feel about the parent or caregiver of a child whose parent, a mother or father, has sexually molested another child? It's expressing to the child, depending on the age, that other people in that child's life who was affected, who was abused, they're allowed to be mad. They're allowed to report it because it was a crime.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And allowing other people, the victim and the survivor and the family of the victims and survivors, allowing them to be upset because their child was affected or they were affected, and reporting it was the right thing to do. Like, nothing irritates me more, and I know I shouldn't allow it, but I've witnessed it. Mm-hmm. But more when I hear that family members of perpetrators call the victim who was molested and blame them for ruining their life. Right. Blame them for reporting it and ultimately changing their own life because now they don't have a husband, or their son is being not being able to attend certain events. But blaming the victims. Yeah. Because of and I just think that's really important that we never do that. Like, I know that's normal to feel that way and you're trying to control a situation, but that victim's already had that pain. They're the ones that were affecting it. This isn't about revenge. Yeah. This is about, you committed a crime against me or you committed a crime against my child, and we have to do what's right because the law dictates that it has to be reported. Yeah. And so it really bothers me.
Yeah, and it should bother more people because again, at the end of the day, we can't change a society where we have all these problems and expect them to be fixed when we just continue to protect and not hold people accountable. And again, and as hard as it is to accept the fact that one of your family members has caused harm to another. Protecting them, you're not actually protecting them by withholding accountability. You're actually, going to increase the chances of them continuing to do it and putting other children in harm's way. But unfortunately, what happens is people, when they experience a high level of pain, or just the unable to kind of accept that, that this has happened because it just doesn't align with their belief about this particular person, that intense feeling, it's very difficult to override and actually think about other people's pain. In that moment, you hope that when they kind of get through that initial shocked feeling, that the empathy then kicks in. You'd hope.
And when it does kick in, make a call and apologize to that
absolutely.
victim.
Yeah,
that victim needs to hear that, you know what, I am sorry. It's okay to say sorry. I was wrong. I was emotional. I was trying to protect my parent. I wasn't thinking about your feelings. Validate the victim.
Yeah.
Because it's not the victim's fault. They didn't ask for this. They did not ask for your family member to abuse them. And so, then make your amends and call up that victim and say, you know what, I should have never called you and asked you to be silent.
Yeah.
I should have never expected for you not to report this. And it hurt me, it hurt my family, this person hurt us, but I shouldn't have put you in that position. And I'm sorry. That's all you have to do. Make the amend.
Well, if you want the relationship to be, to be mended, right? If you want to repair the relationship with that person, you may in the initial moment you may, kind of convince yourself that it's not important to you but down the road, if you dig your heels in and you just don't hold yourself responsible and you don't try to apologize when you've done something wrong, it turns I've seen it turns people into very angry and defensive people across the board.
Yeah.
And so because you're not going to be able to let go of the fact that you didn't apologize when deep down you should have apologized and you should have taken responsibility for how you treated other people who didn't deserve it. You may have initially thought that they did because, as you said, the mentality and the narrative is you've destroyed my family. Like, well, your spouse or significant other destroyed the family. But, again, shame and guilt will many times be blanketed by anger. So
Yes. And that victim already it took so much to even say something. And now they're being silenced again or blamed for something they didn't cause. Many perpetrators love to blame victims and survivors. And so once you have somebody who's a family member of a perpetrator do that, that is just cementing that this is all my fault. I caused this. When, in fact, survivors don't cause anything. And so it's just trying to be mindful. But it's never too late to mend a relationship, to just pick up that phone and say, you know what, this happened years ago. I know I called you. I made that call. Or, I am sorry, and it was my way of dealing with this. If you care, I mean, if you want to, it doesn't matter. That's fine. If you don't want to, but it does also remove the guilt that the person who did it, it lifts that guilt from them. To say, I've made this amend, I've called, because that happens more often than we know.
Yeah.
Even scars have tried to be. People have tried to silence us when we have to, report these things. Because that's what awareness is about. We want there to be a deterrent, and we have to do this work. This is critical work. But somebody's going to get hurt in this work. Someone is going to get hurt, and this is where the actions of a perpetrator, it goes well beyond victims. Beyond victims, it's their families, it's their own families, it's their own children, their relatives. It affects everybody, right?
Yep, and it's for the child that's been abused and the family it's a lifetime sentence. It changes everything. It changes everything for them as well. So to believe to believe that just because the family of a child that has been abused is fine, or that they're fine now that they've reported it, and that that they're doing well now, like that's naive to believe that it ends there. Yeah, it doesn't end there.
Yeah, no, and it doesn't end for the children of perpetrators either.
No,
that pain is there too for them, and they've been affected by that.
Well,
and I think we really have to consider that as well.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, so I was talking earlier about, the difficulties of feeling confused and the cognitive dissonance. This is my parent who I love, but this also a person has done something wrong. This creates a lot of long-term confusion about trust, morality, their relationships with people. And, probably bigger than that on a small community is the stigma and social isolation. Any association with the offender can lead to, bullying at school. community judgment or gossip, which, unfortunately, the island is notorious for gossiping and negatively about other people. So the child's going to feel marked, and to think that a child is naive into looking for and making key judgments about people who are treating them differently, who are looking at them differently, or not playing with them anymore, or just making comments by something that they had no control over. They didn't do anything wrong. They did nothing wrong.
Can I do a shout out to parents whose children go attend events with children whose a parent has been convicted of molesting a child. If you have children that attend school with these children, please teach your own child, or even grandchildren, teach your own child to be kind, to be empathetic, to be supportive towards that child of a child molester. Because when you model and teach kindness and compassion towards children, like all children, it will spill over to your child, and they'll know what to do when they become an adult. And so we have to model that. They're only going to children are sponges. They're going to copy what we do. And if we're in a room, and the next room they're hearing you talk about this, and they're going to listen to that. They're going to absorb that. They're going to live that. Yeah. And it could cause them not to, like you said, to isolate.
Well, yeah, because, if a child hears anybody talking about one of their parents, you got to remember that child is 50% of that parent. So you're scolding and damaging, their own identity and how they feel about themselves. You're damaging 50% of them as you talk negatively and horribly about their parent that, again, they didn't get to choose. And what we know about kids that, that go through things like this, where they're kind of marked. They're marked as the child of somebody who has done something wrong or done something illegal. They've been pegged as, oh, well, watch out for that kid, And so, I mean, imagine just alienating a child like that. We're going to actually create, potentially a monster. Because of what choice do they have if nobody wants to be around them, or they've been targeted, or they've been accused of something that they haven't done just because they're the child of that parent. We're just going to kind of invite them into a lifestyle that potentially engages in the same bad behavior. So.
Yes, because they believe that's who they are.
Correct.
If they've been labeled that and identified as that, they're going to start living that.
Correct.
And so, and this is why even survivors, I don't look at myself as a survivor. I look at myself as Debbie Ray Rivers, and I know my good parts, I know my bad parts, and I've broken down those walls. But if we label children of molesters as then they're going to start believing that. And we have to say, listen, they had no choice in this matter of the choices that their parent or guardian made or their family member made. And they also have choices of what they need to do. You can't tell them that they shouldn't love that parent.
No.
But because children will love their parents no matter what. You want to give them the space and the choice to feel. You want to make sure they're safe, number one. You got to make sure, because molesters don't stop with one child. We know that. They don't just wake up one day and think they're going to be, they're going to do that. And so we want to rule out that the child of the molester hasn't been affected, and that the friends of the child of the molester haven't been affected. That would be incumbent of any adult to say, I just want to rule out nobody else has been affected. That's very important to me. We need to make sure nobody else was affected, because we don't want to keep this secret for years and years. But we also want to help our own children who weren't affected to understand we are not to hate the child or get upset with the child because that wasn't their fault that their parent did this.
No,
right?
No, and imagine what they're having to deal with from such a young age. Whether it's arrest, incarceration, the legal restrictions, it affects the living arrangements change, financial security for the other parent likely changes, their daily routine. So maybe maybe mom or dad were a big part of picking them up or taking them to their, different events, and now that's different. So, all
Yeah.
these sudden changes can feel just like a form of an indirect trauma.
It is right. And that's where that parent or that partner of the molester needs a lot of support.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
people have to pick up the pieces where this perpetrator has caused all this, all these problems. It just didn't
Yeah.
stop with the child that they have affected for the rest of their life. It's affected everybody.
Yeah.
And it's like dominoes, right? Everybody is affected.
Yeah.
And so if that partner of a child molester can get support to help with all the things that are going to change now, that's critical.
Yeah. We have to yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and the idea too of, the silence and the secrecy, I've heard many times, and it just, it's disturbing to say, like, everything stays in the family. And it's like, well, if you kind of swear this child to secrecy of dealing with something like this, and they can't talk to anybody outside the family, and I get that we have to be able to trust that the outside world is emotionally mature enough to not misuse the information for their gain of gossiping. And, that might be something that this culture needs to work on.
Yeah. And can I say also, as I'm thinking about it, organizations who open their doors to children, they can have like a policy on this. Think about what they're going to say to the other parents. Think about how, because it is going to affect it is going to affect everyone. It really is. And get some support on what do we do in a case like this? Yeah. Because as reporting increases, this is going to happen. And everybody's got to know, what do we do in a case like this? In the SCAR's view, people who sexually harm children should have to be within a certain distance from children. I mean, that is the consequences when you change a child's life forever. And so that has to happen. And that's nobody else's fault but the person who did it. They brought this on themselves. That's the consequences of sexually abusing a child. And so, everybody's got to respect some of those boundaries, but that little child of the molester is going to feel it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think one of the things we should start talking about is just, what to do, what to say to these children once it's discovered or once the child finds out. Because that can be really hard to navigate, is what to say in those situations.
Yes. And maybe we need to put a list together, and I can put that on the website, Alicia, now that we're talking about this, some protective factors that can help, what to avoid when it comes to this, because we are a small community. Reporting is now, people are, there's a deterrent out there. People are learning about this. They are realizing the trauma that is victims and survivors carry for their life.
Yeah.
And we want to do everything, but it doesn't, but I don't think it's going to deter, because, sexual abuse is still happening. And we haven't eradicated it. But we want to provide our community with support around this if this does happen, because this is real life.
Yeah, yeah. And so things like a useful framework around it would be, leading with things like safety, for instance, kind of helping the child feel like no matter what, they're going to be safe. We're going to keep them safe.
Yes.
But having a very concrete plan, like it's got to be a very well thought out, but very kind of simple plan that the child can understand.
Yes.
Using simple truths, like kids do not need to know detail, right? They don't need to know all the detail, but they do need the truth. Short explanations, older kids can have a little bit more direct language, but it's truthful but contained information is the idea. And inviting questions. Sometimes you might be able to answer them, and sometimes you may not. But
yes.
You don't want to just pretend, because if a child thinks something is true and you tell them that it's not true, or you try to pretend that it's not true so that they don't believe it, they're going to find out. They're going to actually explore even in more detail. They're going to try to explore for themselves, and then you don't want them finding out more detail because they went kind of snooping for information. Because if they believe something is true, they're going to do detective work.
Especially if they're older, or if it's a younger child, somebody tells them on the playground, what their parent did to another child. That is going to be so traumatizing. And so, the parents of children, if you're listening and you talk to your child in an age-appropriate, child-friendly way, that yes, we have heard this, but we are just to support the child. It's okay if you, as a parent, don't want to send your child over there anymore. Like, everybody has choices, right?
Yeah.
But making sure it has nothing to do with that child. It has nothing to do with that child.
The
definitely, child of the molester.
Definitely. And getting them, and encouraging them to name their feelings without forcing them. So, things like you might feel sad, mad, or confused. You might have mixed feelings. And of course, kids in intrafamilial abuse situations, they might feel very loyal, fear, confusion, and self-doubt all at once. So normalizing whatever they're feeling is very crucial. And basically telling them, it is okay to feel whatever you feel. And obviously the big thing is removing any self-blame. Children often worry that they caused things, right? And and adults do that too, right? When you feel like you're not in control of something, what helps to give you a false sense of control is to just blame yourself, and figuring out why, because you just want to know why it happened. And so it's easy to say, oh, if I did, I shouldn't have done this, or I've done this, or and encouraging them to recognize that it's the consequences are the adult's responsibility, that it was a choice that person made, but don't promise secrecy, And
I think I think the parent, the other partner, the other parent, the other caregiver, they should have some choices in terms of protecting their own child from this parent, other parent who abused, the offender.
Absolutely.
They need to have some choices, because it was that offender that made that choice.
Yep,
okay?
and there's no telling.
That offender did that.
Yep, and there's no telling, there's no guarantee that the offender isn't going to target their own child at some point. It's not definite, but you have to do whatever you need to do to set important boundaries in regards to
and protection.
Yes. So.
And when you're somebody that has made devastating choices like this, I would think that it would be wise to say, listen, especially when you're sorry, is to say, I'm going to give you all your space.
Yes.
And when you're ready, I'm going to work on me right now, because I've done this horrible thing and I need a lot of help. Pray for me.
I have no expectations of you. I have no expectations of you.
Thank you. I have no expectations of you. I don't want you to feel guilt or shame for not having a relationship with me. I need to get some help, and you all need to get help as well of what I have caused, the pain that I have caused you.
Yeah.
And when that child becomes an adult, they will have the choice whether they want to have a relationship with me, and nobody should be upset with that, because adults have choices, and we should never take away choices. Yeah. But I would say be very careful about bringing children around them in when it's
unsupervised.
Unsupervised. Don't set up children, and that don't set up that offender to fail either. So put those protections, but let an adult make those choices. But an offender who does wrong should always give that child and the person that they have caused all this pain some choices. As well.
Well, you have to put your own feelings of your own loss or feelings aside, because to allow the victim to heal from their doing. Just because you're ready to confess and to apologize, it doesn't mean that the person hearing it has to accept it in that moment. Because if you then get defensive and you get angry, well, then you've just basically dismantled the relationship all over again, because you're telling that person that they're not allowed to feel what they're feeling. So.
Exactly. And, abusers like to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unfortunately, we have the realm of manipulation that they've mastered many times, right? They've mastered the art of manipulation and manipulating people's narrative and information to suit, to justify what they've done. That's
and minimize it. It's very manipulative.
Very, very minimizing. Yes.
And you know what? Everybody should be able to see the change in that person.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody would be able to say, I see something different in this person.
The only person that
all
has
these people.
The only person that has something to prove is the perpetrator. The child and the family have nothing to prove to the perpetrator except, to watch and observe and assess for safety. So.
Yes. Yes. And we have to really, really consider children of molesters. We have to think about them.
Well,
because they're children.
And so some examples of like how to talk to, say, a young child. So we're talking about maybe somebody who's maybe 4 or 5 years old. When they ask questions about the other parent, so they say, your mom or your dad or an adult has broken an important rule about keeping children safe. You did nothing wrong. If anything ever made you feel uncomfortable, you can tell me. So it's very brief, it's very vague, and, just right. They broke a rule. For an older child, you might be able to say something like, there's more serious concerns that your mom or dad behaved in an unsafe sexual way with other children. You're not responsible for this. My job to keep you safe and answer your questions honestly. You can feel, I can only imagine what you must be feeling in this moment. So whenever you're ready, I'm here. And you wait, and you don't force it. You do not force the conversation, because that child will, I guarantee, will dig their heels in. You've just said something that's made them feel powerless. And so for you to then try to take their power away by forcing a conversation is just going to make them go further into a shell. And then, with a teen, you can, obviously they're going to find out anyway. So you can say like your mom or dad is accused of, sexual abuse involving minor children. I can imagine this brings up a lot of feelings, and I'll be honest with you. I won't pressure you, and we'll keep you safe first. Let's get you some help. Let's get you, somebody that you can talk to, maybe a therapist, and I'll go through the journey with you as much as you want me to go through it with you. That's going to increase the chances of that child talking to you. And these are ongoing. This is not just a one-off conversation. Expect multiple conversations. The child's not going to necessarily disclose how they feel right away. But that's where, you just want to be patient and supportive. So.
Yes, that's really good advice, Dr. Hancock. Really breaking it down to age-appropriate, child-friendly conversation, right?
Yeah.
And if we don't know, reach out to get some help, right? Reach out for some guidance, because the information's there. Go ahead.
Well, and I just thought of another, like with a young child, another kind of maybe a really effective thing to say is something like, mom or dad broke a serious rule about keeping children safe. You're safe with me, and none of this is your fault. So you're telling them the truth, but again, you're keeping it brief and vague, because they do not need to know as much as whatever you're feeling about the other parent. You don't want to put that and project that onto them. No. Years ago, it would be, you don't want them to overhear your conversation. Well, you don't want them to pick up your phone and read conversations, right? Mm-hmm. Either. Mm-hmm. Be very careful where you're talking, who you're talking to, and make sure it's private and away from that child. Yeah.
because
Exactly.
you're entitled to your emotions, but just don't bring it on that little one. That little one is not a mini adult.
Correct.
They can't take extra burden on their little shoulders.
Yep, exactly.
Well, this is all really good information, and I hope it helps. We really hope it helps somebody out there, which is why we decided to do this show, because we know we're going to see more and more of this as people report. There are others that are affected, and
call in anonymously. Call in anonymously.
Yes.
Give us your thoughts. Give us your thoughts and feelings.
Yes, for sure. We know that, as we close, we just know that children should be carefree, everyone. They should be carefree from worry. They should be carefree from someone hurting them, physically, verbally, sexually, emotionally. Children rely on adults, all adults, to do the right thing, including the people who brought them into this world. And, we as the caregivers of children who are not the molesters, we don't always get it right. But when it comes to the topic of child sexual abuse, every adult must do the right thing for children. When a child molester sexually violates other children outside the home, we know it will affect the children in their home.
Yep.
And they have scars too, right?
Yes. Yep.
Never, ever forget that every child is important. And when the actions of the people who bring them into this world or are directly responsible for them violate another children, it will change their own child's life forever. And it will cause them shame and pain that's not theirs.
Yeah, and let's not exacerbate that damage and that destruction by, judging, gossiping, etc.
Yes. The truth is, we're a sexual abuse prevention organization. We can never stop calling out the sexual violation of children. Yep. Never, ever. We can never go back to the silence of this crime and be okay when people use children for sexual gain or power. We can never excuse, we can never minimize or deny the behavior of child molesters. Never. We're never going to do that. We must always shed light on this topic. Because we know that silence doesn't save children from sexual harm. It protects those that violate them.
There's no gray area.
We do have to consider.
Yeah. There's no gray area.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. But we should consider that the child or the children of a child molester, they hurt too. And they did not cause this. They cannot change it. But they still feel it, right, Dr. Hancock?
Yep. They do. Their lives are shattered. Their lives are shattered, and we want to support them and help them them through it, not exacerbate the damage. Yes,
and make them feel worse what they already are feeling.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Dr. Hancock. Thank you again for your valuable wisdom, incredible wisdom when it comes to this, and your guidance. We really thank you. And Shelley, thank you.
You're very welcome, honey.
Thank you, Shelley.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for this time, and thank you, Conduit Foundation. We are grateful to if anyone's listening, we're just grateful for your continued support of SCARS. Our next Survivor Hour radio show, everyone, is scheduled for Thursday, May 21st at 1:15. You may or may not have seen the post, or heard I think there's a recording, but our Survivor Hour radio shows have been changed from Wednesday to Thursdays. And the next one is Thursday, May 21st.